So guys, welcome to the Labrynth video. I already wanted to make the video, but I wanted to wait until we know whether we will get Kashtira or not, because this impacts a few cards that we would have put in the deck or not put in the deck. But as this will be the case, we will not get Kashtira in the next pack. Kashtira will come in the pack after that, but we will get Lady Labrynth and also Big Welcome Labrynth, which also the new secret pack where the Labrynth cards, the Welcome and the Lovely, which are the ultra rares, will be in. And yeah, let's talk about how a deck can and will look like in Master Duel. And we have two different versions here: the pure version, which is more of a trap heavy version, and the furniture version, which plays with the Labrynth Chandraglir, Labrynth Stovitorbi, and the Kuklok, more of a Labrynth core and monster focused version. And I will talk about why I will play probably one of the versions over the other, even though I like the other one more. So these are two versions that are played or were played in the TCG. At first, the people were playing the pure version, which is way more trap heavy. You can also see evenly matched in here. You can see triple compulsory evacuation device, triple dogmatica punishment, which is obviously nice with cards like Entes in the extra deck, but we will talk about all of this. Floodgates like Skill Drain, Gozen Match, or Rivalry of the Warlords, and also the just limited to one Eradicator Epidemic Virus. And then in recent times, more recently, people switched over to this furniture IKEA version, because IKEA furniture, you know, where they were playing the Chandraglir, the Stovitorbi, and the Kuklok. If you don't know it, Kuklok can basically discard itself to be able, or enables you then to activate a trap card that was just set this turn. So you can basically treat it like a spell card, which is really nice. And Stovitorbi and Chandraglir can discard themselves and another card to set Labrynth trap onto the field, so you can set your Big Welcome or your Welcome Labrynths. And then they can also recycle themselves when a card leaves the field because of one of your trap effects. Now you know the basic effect of Labrynth basically. Then you can get the Stovitorbi back on the field, which this thing can also activate its effect on the field as a quick effect. And Chandraglir can go back to the hand. This also works for Kuklok, though Kuklok activates and goes back from the grave to your hand if you send a card from your hand to the graveyard to activate a trap card or a Labrynth effect. So for example, if you would activate your Stovitorbi in the hand, then you could get back your Kuklok. So let's first talk about what are we getting here. We are getting the Lady Labrynth, the next pack, and the Big Welcome Labrynth. Why is that so impactful? So we already have the Lovely, which your opponent cannot activate monster effects in response to the activation of your normal trap cards. This is nice. And then this one can also reset traps from your graveyard to the field, which is really strong. And when a card leaves the field because of one of your trap card effects, you can then destroy a card on your opponent's field or in your opponent's hand. So really, really strong effect. But this one also got stuck in your hand quite often, and the deck until now lacked some major consistency. Now we're getting Lady Labrynth of a Silver Castle, which is arguably the better of these two. This one can, while you control a set card, so a face down card, cannot, no, it's like, oh no, it's a set card. Yeah, it's a face down card. Yeah. Then your opponent cannot target this card with card effects, and it cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. So it's really hard to destroy this thing, and it has really big stats, as you can see. And then if a Labrynth card or effect of a normal trap was activated this turn, so basically every trap and every Labrynth effect, these also count. When it was activated this turn, then you can, via quick effect, special summon this card from your hand in defense position to the field. And then, when a normal trap card is activated, quick effect, you have to basically change this directly to the trap. So, for example, let's say you activate an impermanence, then you can change the Lady to then set one normal trap with a different name, so not impermanence in this case, directly from your deck to the field. This also works for opponent's traps, so if your opponent activates an impermanence, you can also chain with your Lady to this. So really, really strong. And then the, I think, even more important card is Big Welcome Labrynth. So we had Welcome Labrynth, which can special summon one Labrynth monster from your deck to the field. So you were special summoning your Lovely and your Ariana, for example. But this here can now special summon one Labrynth monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard. This is the first important thing, because if this, for example, is in your graveyard or hand, you can resummon it onto your field. Then return one monster you control to the hand. And this is so important, then you can return one monster you control to the hand. So this basically triggers all your effects, because if a monster is sent via a trap effect to your hand, then you can destroy one of your opponent's hand cards or field cards. This one can then draw a card or summon a fiend. And these ones will basically return to your hand. So this is basically able to trigger all your effects, is also able to trigger your Welcome Labyrinth to reset to the field. So you can, for example, this is what you will quite often do. You will summon your Lady Labyrinth, then you will bounce back your Lady Labyrinth to the hand, because maybe you only have the lady on the field, then you basically have to bounce her. But that's not a problem, because you can special summon her, because a Labyrinth effect was activated. Then you can special summon her via quick effect, so she's back on the field. And then there's another big thing. You can banish this card from your graveyard and target one fiend monster you control. That's already nice. Or if you control a level 8 or higher fiend monster, so one of these here, then you can target one card your opponent controls, so either card, either monster, trap or spell, and return it to the hand. So this is when it's in the graveyard, a bounce back to hand. But keep in mind, you can also bounce your own cards back to your hand. So for example, if you play the Ariana, which can draw you a card, and you have Skill Drain active, for example, you could play the Ariana, the effect activates on field, you activate the Big Welcome in the grave, bounce back your Ariana to the hand, and then because the effect activated on field, but the Ariana is no longer on the field when the effect resolves, it will not be negated by Skill Drain. Or for example, you could just send the Ariana back to hand to play her again next turn to draw another card. One thing that you can also do, which is quite a nice combo, if you have both Big Welcome and Welcome set on the field, you can then first activate your Welcome Labyrinth. No, first activate your Big Welcome, so it will go on the chain last, it will trigger last. Then activate your Welcome. Your Welcome summons your Lovely. Your Big Welcome summons the Lady. Then you bounce back the Lady to hand. And because you have bounced back the Lady to hand, your Lovely activates and you can rip one card out of your opponent's hands. So this is why this is so impactful and makes this deck really, really strong. Without this support, this deck was really lacking in power, but now it's one of the most powerful decks. It's definitely up there with all the other decks. We will have to see how this will perform as long as Kashtira, as long as Tearlaments is around. But with Kashtira coming, this can definitely keep up with Kashtira. I think this can also keep up with Tearlaments. This will be one of the best decks in the game for sure. So let's talk now about the list, about the difference of the lists and why I would say, spoiler alert, I will play this Labyrinth Furniture IKEA list over the pure list. So let's talk about why I will do this, and then we will talk about all the cards in detail. Unfortunately, so one thing that made this deck or this version of the deck really great is Triple Pot of Prosperity, because the Triple Pot of Prosperity basically allows you to select the cards that you want to banish from your extra deck. So you could, for example, because you are also playing Triple Dogmatica Punishment, which is a really strong card, for those of you who do not know, you can send one monster from your extra deck to the graveyard and then destroy a monster on the field with equal or more attack, equal or less attack than the sent monster. So you would send your Entes, could then destroy a card with 2500 attack or less, and Entes in the graveyard would activate to destroy another card on the field. So really, really strong trap interaction here. But if you are not able to play Triple Pot of Prosperity, which we only have one in the game, then you cannot choose which cards you want to banish. The problem with the deck is, especially with this version, that it lacks a bit of consistency. So that is why you would play 6 pots here. You would play 3 Pot of Duality and then 3 Pot of Prosperity. This would also allow you to search, for example, your evenly matched quite consistently. It's basically the same like in Flanders. They are also playing 6 pots here and can get to their evenly matched quite consistently. So what you can basically substitute these pots with here is 2 pots of Extravagance, which the new version of the deck plays Triple Pot of Extravagance, because you can see there's only one Dogmatica Punishment. The reaction traps here, Compulsory Punishment, Dimensional Barrier, for example, are not, there are not a lot of these in the deck right here. So it's not that important that you banish random cards from your extra deck, because you, for example, only play one Dogmatica Punishment. So you can afford to play Pot of Extravagance. Also, because you are playing the IKEA furniture guys here, you basically need more cards in your hand because you need to discard more, because these have the effect that you need to discard. So that is why these pots are way better in this version than in this version. But unfortunately, we have 3 of these in the game, but only 1 of this. So this automatically makes this version weaker. We basically have to substitute with Pot of Extravagance, which now makes our Dogmatica Punishment weaker, because if we are unlucky and banish 6 and maybe another 6 from the deck, then our end test could be gone already, and then our punishment is way weaker. This is the first thing. The second thing is that this version was way more reliant on the floodgates, and we only have every floodgate at 1. It's not a big problem for Gozen Match or for Rivalry, but it is a big problem for Skill Drain. So Skill Drain, triple Skill Drain was really important in this deck. Unfortunately, we don't have it. That's why I have all the floodgates at 1 right here. This deck is not even playing any floodgates, so there is no Skill Drain in here, though you could place or could put the Skill Drain in here. You could do that. For example, I recently switched out the compulsory for the Terrors of the Overroot. I will talk about this in a moment, but you could also switch this out for a Skill Drain, would also work. Skill Drain is just such a strong card. Maybe I will try this when this comes out. We will try both versions, but as of right now, this will probably be the version I will try to play first. So let's switch back over to here. So these are already two things that make this deck unfortunately weaker in Master Duel than it was in the original game. If that would not be the case, I would prefer playing this version. I like the version more, to be honest, the trap version, but I think this version will be the stronger version in our game because we have the Pot of Extravagance. Also, another important thing, we have more space in here for hand traps than there is in this deck. So this allows us to also play 3 Ash, which is pretty nice with a lot of branded player running around. And we can also, and this is quite strong in this deck, TCG has it at 1, we have it at 2, Psy Frame Gear Gamma. We will play this in the deck, 2 off and Psy Frame Driver, because there will be a lot of times when on your first turn you basically only, for example, set 4 face down cards, and then you can still activate your Gamma. With a lot of decks you basically have the problem that either your Gamma at the beginning of your turn, or then you play any monster and Gamma is basically not live for the rest of the duel. But with a trap deck, obviously, you can play Gamma and get away with it. And this is even better here in the Labrynth trap deck than it is, for example, in the Trap Tricks trap deck, because Trap Tricks needs to play a lot of monsters on the field in the first turn. So this hand trap is especially strong in this deck, and we have room for it. That's pretty nice. We also only need to run 4 pots. We are running 3 pot of extra and 1 of prosperity, because prosperity is such a strong card that we definitely want to run this. So this is the argument for running this version over this version. This is why I think this version is weaker than is this. You can also run this version. For example, you could build it like I showed you here, but let's go over more of a card to card, and let me explain you why all of these cards are important. I will obviously, we have already talked about this. We have talked about this. Ariana is just to search. You can -1 Ariana here, for example, also, but this is for consistency. We play triple Chandra and triple Stovitorbi because they can search each other out, basically, and they will be recycled. They can set our Big Welcome and our Welcome Labyrinth, which are basically the cards we want on our field, because this gets us into the important engine, which is the Lady and the Lovely. Lovely can set every trap and Lady can search every trap. So, for example, let's say Eradicator Epidemic Virus. You could search your Eradicator Epidemic Virus with your Lady, set it on the field, then you could, for example, activate your Coup Clock, and then right now activate your Eradicator, tributing your Lady to destroy all of your opponent's spells or traps. And then, for example, if you wanted to, you could reset it via your Lovely. So this is the reason why in this deck there is only basically a 1 of every good trap card here, because you can search the one you want, and then you can basically reset it via your Lovely. You can also see that we can play triple impermanence here versus in this deck where we are not playing this, which is also quite strong. So this is why we are running 1 of basically every basic trap, because you can search it and reset it, and you can then activate it this turn if you have a Coup Clock also. Then, of course, triple Ash, we have 2 Psy Frame Gear Gamma, we have triple Maxi, and the cool thing is that we don't need to run like 2 Caught by the Grave and 1 Crossout Designator, because we are not that impacted by Maxi. It's not a problem for us not playing into Maxi, so we don't need to protect against it, but we obviously want to like have Maxi, because this basically, or in a lot of cases, means a turn swap for our opponent. Then I talked about these guys already, Pot of Extravagance, to have more cards in your hand, Pot of Prosperity also. Then I have Labrynth in both of these versions. And normally you would put this this is more of a side deck card, but you don't have a side deck, and I think you want to have this in your main deck, because I am expecting a lot of trap decks we will get, and also Labrynth for the next format. So you will play a lot of grinding games, and I think in a grind game this here is one of the most important cards against, for example, another Labrynth deck. You would definitely want to have your Labrynth. This is also the case, or the reason why we play the Eradicator Epidemic Virus in both versions in the main deck. This is not like do it every time, but I am expecting a lot of Labrynth, I'm expecting a lot of trap tricks, and we also still have a lot of Runic running around. So the Labrynth mirror is basically decided by who can set the Eradicator Epidemic Virus first and also activate it to destroy all the opponent's trap cards. So this is why this is in here. Then we have obviously 2 Welcome Labrynth. Here are 3 Welcome Labrynth, because this is lacking more consistency, and we have the triple Chandra Gear, triple Stovey Torby, which all of them can set these cards to the field. So this is why we don't need to run 3 Welcome Labrynth. A lot of versions are also only running 2 Lady Labyrinths here. At the moment I am running 3. You could argue for putting one out and putting one Skill Drain in. I will definitely try this. Maybe I will even start with this depending on what I pull from the pack. If, for example, I only pull 2 Lady, then I might not craft a third one and then just put a Skill Drain in here. But you will need 3 of Big Welcome. This is really important. Then, oh no, what have I done here? I have changed something, but it's alright. Then I have triple Impermanence, nothing to say here. Impermanence is just a strong card. Big Welcome Level, we've talked about this, super strong card. Dogmatica Punishment, I already talked about this, and a lot of cards in the extra deck, and we will go over this in a moment, are in there because of Dogmatica Punishment. We have Dimensional Barrier, which I think is really, really important. You can also see we have it at 2 here. Maybe you can also put it at 3 here. You could also argue about putting more in here. This obviously helps you against Branded Despia, but also against Tearlaments. For those of you who don't know the card, you can declare one type other than Link, so you can declare Fusion, you can declare XYZ, you can declare Pendulum, and then your opponent cannot summon these monsters and activate the effect of these monsters. So you basically can lock your opponent out of Fusion summoning, Branded Despia, Kashtira, and then of course you can search it via your Lady, and then you can reset it via your Lovely. So you can basically reset this every turn and activate it every turn again if you make it right and your opponent doesn't interrupt you, and that is that. Then we have the Eradicator, and then we have Compulsory Evacuation Device. This is quite nice. You definitely want to activate this on extra deck monsters. You can see I have also 3 in here, and I will talk about another card in a moment, which I have replaced this for after I saw that there will be no Kashtira. So Compulsory Evacuation Device, at first this obviously activates all your Labyrinth effect because a card leaves the field via your trap effects. But as I already said, try to use this on extra deck monsters. So if your opponent, for example, makes a Mirror Jade, then it's obviously super nice to send the Mirror Jade back into the extra deck. Or for example, I don't know, a Zeus or something, Kid Kalos, whatever. You can send this back to the extra deck then. So let's talk about the extra deck, but before we do that, let's talk about the one card I was cutting because I saw that there is no Kashtira coming. So this card is definitely something that you want to replace in your Labrynth deck once Kashtira comes out. You want to place 3 of these in this deck and 1 of this in this deck. Keep in mind that Terrors of the Overroot is an ultra rare that you cannot pull from any secret pack, unfortunately, so you don't need to run the card, but it's super nice against Kashtira. Why is that the case? Let's read the card. Target 1 card your opponent controls and 1 card in their graveyard. That card on the field goes to the graveyard and the other card is set on the field. So what you have to understand about Kashtira, if you don't know it already, all their monsters, their level 7 monsters, can be special summoned to the field if there is no other monster on the field. So if, for example, your opponent special summons a Kashtira Fenrir or a Kashtira Unicorn to start their whole line, you could then activate your Terrors of the Overroot. Given that they already have 1 card in the grave, it's really nice if you can do this with an Ash or something. Then you can activate Terrors of the Overroot, set the Ash, for example, to the field and bring the Fenrir or the Unicorn to the graveyard. And because there is a card on the field face down that they cannot really remove, then they cannot play another card. So, for example, if you remove the Fenrir or the Unicorn that they just played with Dogmatica Punishment or with Compulsory, then they can just summon another card. Or if you use Compulsory in that case, they can just resummon the card because it's still in hand. So getting rid of a monster in Kashtira, destroying it and giving them a free field is not that effective, but locking their field by setting like a trash card onto the field like Ash or something or Maxi, That is really impactful, and this is why Terrors of the Overroot is one of the best traps against Kashtira, and you definitely want to switch this out for this once the Kashtira card comes out. In this case, you would optimally run 2 or 3 of them in here. I mean, it's also a question of how many ultra rare points you want to invest, I guess. But that is that for Terrors of the Overroot. So let's talk about the extra deck. A lot of cards in the extra deck, as I already mentioned, are interacting with the Dogmatic Punishment. That is more the case in this extra deck than it is in this extra deck. Also keep in mind, this extra deck is a bit less fledged out, so this will probably be run by me in this compilation here. Let's talk about this. We have Fossil Warrior Skull Knight, Fossil Warrior Skull Wagon. If you get them to the graveyard, then you can activate them in the graveyard. This one destroys a monster, this one destroys a spell or trap. So this is for Dogmatic Punishment. Then you have Garura. You already know the card. You can send Garura via your Dogmatic Punishment and draw a card. But you also have this card in here, the Tribrigade Arms Bucephalus. Funnily enough, this is an animation, but is never used even in Tribrigade because it's super bad. The only reason this card is played and it's basically bad in every Labrynth deck is that when this card goes to the graveyard, you can send another winged beast monster from your extra deck to the graveyard. So the problem with Garura and Dogmatic Punishment is Garura has only 1500 attack, so you're basically not able to destroy anything via Dogmatic Punishment. Remember that you can only destroy a monster with equal or less attack, so 1/5 it's not a lot, but you can send the Tribrigade Arms Bucephalus with 3500 attack, which is a lot. This goes to the graveyard, the card gets destroyed, and then you can also send your Garura via this effect, and then you can draw a card. So you can basically use this via Garura, via the Tribrigade Arms Bucephalus line to draw a card, or you could say, okay, I want something to destroy a trap card, I want something to destroy a monster, or you send the Entes yourself, which can destroy any card when it hits the graveyard. Then we have the Baron de Fleur together with the Excel Synchro Stardust Dragon. This is the case because we are running the Psy Frame Gear Gamma package. If, for example, it's your opponent's turn and they maybe throw a Maxi or something and you go Gamma, then you have a level 2 tuner and a level 6 monster, and then you can go into Excel Synchro Stardust Dragon. And the Stardust Dragon is level 8 and can resummon a tuner. So the Stardust Dragon can then resummon the Psy Frame Gear Gamma, and then you can go into level 10 monster Baron de Fleur, which is really strong. So this is why this is in here. Then we have Psy Flame Lord Omega. This is also a target. I mean, you don't need to run this card because this is an ultra rare. I also will have to craft it. So I definitely am thinking about doing this, but this is played in a few decks, so having this card is not the worst thing. If this card is in the graveyard, you can target one banished card. If this card is in your graveyard, you can target one other card in the graveyard and shuffle both that card and this card from the graveyard into the deck. So this is basically an option that you can use to shuffle cards back into your deck that you basically maybe need to reuse. For example, a pot, or maybe you want another Maxi, or maybe you have no, or maybe your field spell is in the grave, for example. This could be use cases of this. Or if you run a skill drain that you cannot reset with your Lovely, you can maybe shuffle back the skill drain. Then I talked about this. Then we have Lingoribo. This is because we have extra deck space, and if our opponent plays something like Ibli, so Nightmare Corruptor Ibli basically locks us out from special summoning only link monsters, and you can link this away via your Lingoribo. This is why this was played in TCG a lot. But I think over here in Master Duel, I had this yesterday where someone played Ibli against me. This is super rare. This doesn't happen a lot of time. This is just extra space. If you want something else here, just go for something else. This is not super important. Maybe you go for Nightmare Phoenix or something. This is not that important. Then we have Mereologic Aggregator. This is also, let me read this, I have not read this a lot. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target one face-up card on the field and negate its effect until the end of the turn. This also has 2600 attack, so this is obviously another Dogmatic Punishment target. If you want. So you basically have destroy a monster, destroy a spell trap, draw a card, destroy any card, shuffle one card back into your deck. Destroy a card and draw a card, and this is negate a monster effect. So all of this is Dogmatic Punishment, but you are not very sad if some of the cards get banished via your Pot of Extravagance. And then we have number 38, Hope Harbinger. You could also play the Orcust guy. This is played, Dingursu is played a lot more in the TCG, but I don't have Dingursu, it's an ultra rare, but I have this guy, it's also an ultra rare, and I think the purpose for this card is the same, because this is an XYZ level 8, and the repurpose is going into Zeus. So these are level 8s here, and if you have, for example, both of them on the field, field and you want to go into Zeus, you could make the Harbinger and then attack and go into Zeus. Same thing with the Dingirsu, that's the same idea basically. If you have this one, put this one in. Then we have number 41 Beguska. You can make this via 2 of your Arianas, for example. Obviously this is just Beguska, but you can also use this to attack and go into Zeus. Then we have Zeus. And I also, this is special, I have seen this nowhere, but I put just a Mannequin Cat in here because we have, for example, Maxi, who is level 2. We have Stovi Torbi, who is level 2. And also the Frame Gear Gamma, who's level 2. So I figured, okay, let's put XYZ monster level 2 in here, which has a lot of attack. So 2000 is a lot of attack. This also has a nice effect. And then you can also attack with this and go into Zeus. So I wanted a few XYZ monsters that would enable me to go into a Zeus potentially. Though keep in mind, in most cases you will not use your extra deck resources really that much. Also because you only have 1 Dogmatica Punishment in here. Now, let's talk about the side deck cards. Obviously, we don't have a side deck. These are only cards that I wanted to talk about that could be good in the deck. First card, Nibiru. This will be nice in the deck, and I probably will put it in once Kashtira comes out, because this is really nice against Kashtira. Okay. You could put in Kashtira Fenrir. We don't have it right now, so we don't need to talk about this. You could also put in one of Mudora, one of Keldo, just to have a better matchup against Tier Elements if you wanted to, if you really hate it. You can always put something out like the Gamma here, because Gamma destroying Tier Element cards is obviously not that great, though there are not a lot of Tier Element stacks running around right now. So in terms of what you could replace here, you could replace the Gammas, you could replace one Lady Labrynth. Other than that, could replace the pot here. It's not needed, but I really like this pot here. Yeah, could replace compulsory, yeah, but I think this deck is fine as it is, but just some suggestions. This is if you face a lot of sprites, then you can replace this virus for this virus, because this destroys all the sprite cards. Obviously you could run some Bestials. You could also run Gozematch if you like this. You could run Lava Golems. This would have been great against Kashtira, but we don't have it. If you wanted to, you could also run Evenly Matched. Could, for example, put out the Impermanences. So Impermanences is definitely a different form of going second protection, because you can negate your opponent's effects. This is then another form of going second protection. Pick your poison. You can decide what you want here. Maybe I will also play a version with this. I don't know. We will see. Could put in Super Polymerization, though keep in mind that you need to change some extra deck monsters then, because you need some targets. Garura is obviously one, but Starving Venom, Fusion Dragon, Mud Dragon, and so on. Could play the Called By and the Crossout, but as I already said, I don't think it's necessary. You could play a third Welcome Labyrinth, but I think you don't need to. This I already talked about. And then there's Skildan, which is definitely the card that I'm most intrigued about putting in here, because it's just so strong in this deck. People hate it. It's a super nice floodgate, and you have the big girls here, which have super big stats and can basically battle over everything. So this is really impactful. So I'm definitely thinking about putting one of this out here and putting the skill drain in, but we will see. As I said, this also depends on how many of these I draw, because as I already said, with all the Labyrinth furniture guys here, you're basically able to set these to the field and then have pretty easy access to these cards here. Okay, so this is all for this version. Now let's talk about a few cards in this version here. Obviously this is same here. Maxi. Then in this version we play Lord of the Heavenly Prison. You could also play this in this version, but it's better in this one because you can access a lot more different cards with the Lord of the Heavenly Prison, which basically protects your back row. This is also the case because in this version you have more like face down cards that you want to protect than in this version, because you can see there are a lot less traps in here. So this is why Lord is better in here. Lord, and then Lord can also on summon place the trap card on the field. We run also the Labyrinth. We in this case run 3 Welcome Labyrinth because this deck has a bit more consistency issues because they don't run the furniture guys. Then same, I run 2 dimensional barriers here. You could argue for maybe putting one of these out and putting a 3rd dimensional barrier in like this if you're facing a lot of Tier Elements and Brand Despia, so you have this maybe on the start hand. It's really nice. Then I already talked about the 6 pots here. In this version, you definitely want the skill run here, you want the Gozematch, you want the Rivalry. The cool thing is that you can play under all of them. Rivalry, you can only control one type and you only have Fiends basically. Keep in mind that your Lord of the Heavenly Prison is a rock, so you can lock yourself with this into rock. Gozematch, you only have dark monsters besides Maxi, which you never put on the field basically. So all of the floodgates work wonderfully for Labyrinth. You can already see again skill drain, and then you have Lord with 3000, that's just awesome. Then we're running one trap trick. Trap trick is nice if you have multiple versions of a trap. For example, Dimensional Barrier, Big Welcome, Welcome, Compulsory, Evenly, Dogmatica, because then you can banish one of those and set the other one and can also activate it this turn. You can also argue for putting two of these in here to eradicate Epidemic Virus, because then you can use trap trick to get to your eradicate Epidemic Virus. And it could be the case, by the way, that if a lot of people play Labrynth, that people with this version are a bit in the advantage, because they can more easily run this trap trick eradicator super package, as I would call it, because running trap trick in this version is not that impactful, because we only run one of these cards and we don't have space to replace them with two offs. And just putting one eradicator additionally in here for the trap tricks card without having two of these here is not that impactful. So this could be an advantage for this version of the deck, that's for sure. Then we have Dogmatica Punishment, 3 times I talked about this. We can play Evenly Matched here, which is pretty nice. This is one of the nicest things in this deck. As I already said, you could also play it over the 3 impermanences here. It's just the question of what kind of interruption do you want. Maybe I will also replace this with Evenly. This is just like, what do you want to play? It's more of a taste question. Then we have 2 Compulsory, also 2, because then we can get Trap Trick. Oh, no, oh, okay, sorry guys, we have this at 1. This is limited to 1. So forget everything I said about the Trap Trick Eradicator interaction. This is not possible. Okay, forget everything I said, but keep in mind that if you play against other trap decks like the Trap Tricks deck or the Labrynth, this is the prime card that you want to activate. Trap Tricks, by the way, usually doesn't play this card because they don't have a monster that is big enough to tribute, so Labrynth is definitely the better trap deck in comparison to Trap Tricks. Then goes to the extra deck. We have this is already clear. We have triple Dogmatica Punishment. I've talked about this, same here, same here, same here, same here, same here. We have 2 Garuas, 1 Bucephalus and 1 Baguska. So as you can see, we have a lot more like targets for the Dogmatica Punishment, because we are playing more Dogmatica Punishments. So we are playing triple Antest, which is also unfortunately an ultra rare. This is also an ultra rare, so you really have to think about this. For sure is the more expensive version. This is the cheaper version because all the furniture guys here are, I think, normals or rares or something. So this is cheaper for sure, and I think better, but yeah, we will see. We have to see that. And as I already talked about, if we face a lot of elements, then maybe consider putting these out for more dimensional barriers, because destroying element cards is like weak. They go through the graveyard and activate their effect. But yeah, then I already said we talked about all of this. Let's talk about some more potential extra deck cards that you could side in, or you could just put in the main deck. You could play There Can Only Be One. Then with There Can Only Be One, and I think one of these, you can fully lock your opponent in one monster. You could put another Lord of the Heavenly Prisons in if you want to, also another Ariana. You could fit somewhere Ash in here, then you would put out maybe a Lord, or maybe a third Dogmatica Punishment, maybe an Evenly or something, but keep in mind that you want to have two offs at least for the Trap Tricks. You could also argue and find place for the Psy package. You could also, if you are crazy, put out the Maxi package, which I would not recommend. Then once again, we have this here against the Sprite. We have Lava Golem, which would have been great against Kashtira, but that's that. Imperial Iron Ward is also nice against Kashtira, also nice against Runic, by the way, if you're facing a lot of Runic, because then they cannot banish cards, which means they cannot activate their Runic quick play spells. Then we have Torrential Tribute, which is also a really strong card. You could consider putting these out and putting 2 Torrential Tributes in, which is also really strong, destroying your whole entire opponent's board. Then if you want more going second cards, you could also go for, as I already talked about, Lava Golem or Ra Sphere mode. Though I think that in this format, this will become way better when Kashtira comes out, so this is why these are in here. Then we have Terrors of the Overroot, already talked about this, and a third Compulsory, which you could also put in here if you wanted to. So these are the lists that I think you can run on release day, and I think which will perform very nice. As I already talked about, I will try this list here, and as I also said, the one thing that I am looking for, or I'm lurking a bit around the corner, is replacing one of these ladies here for 1 skill drain, but we will see how I pull, we will see how I manage. This card is just insane, and if people don't have anything to destroy this, this can basically be a game win. Though obviously I cannot search it with these guys here. This deck has the advantage that you can search search the skill drain with your Lord of the Heavenly Prison. You cannot search it with your Lady because this is not a normal spell, this is a continuous spell. So this is that. And by the way, also this was Dueling Nexus. I already talked about this a lot. You can duel here, match duels, you can play TCG here for free, you can basically build every deck here. It's super nice platform, super cool. I tend to always play here once I have climbed to Master 1 or Diamond 1 and Master Duel is not really challenging me anymore in that season. Then I basically switch over here and play a bit of best of 3 TCG, which best of 3 with OMXC is really refreshing, I can tell you. But yeah. This is up to you. So I hope you liked the video. Please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you have not already and activate the notification bell. This helps out the channel a lot. So happy that you were here. I'm really excited for this. To be honest, I'm a bit sad that Kashtira is not coming next week. Probably if Kashtira will be coming, obviously I will make videos to that. But if Kashtira comes, then there's not a lot that will change in these decks. I just would change the terrors for the compulsory. Same thing in this version here. Maybe in this version I will put in a lava golem or something, but that's basically everything I would change if Kashtira comes. And maybe in this version you would put in Nibiru's. Also in this version you would maybe change out these for Nibiru's. I don't know, we will have to see, but I think we won't get them. So as I already said, thanks for being here. I really enjoyed this, really enjoyed making the lists and explaining the cards. I am really hyped for the deck. I love the Labrynth deck. It's really fun to play. Don't get confused by this being trap decks. This is definitely more of a floodgate trap deck than is this. This is more of a normal deck with a few traps in here. So if you are like, oh, trap decks, Eldritch, oh, I hate this stuff, keep an open mind. This is not really a trap deck, though it is. It's more of a monster-focused trap deck. It's really cool, it's really fun, it's really complex. You have to think about, you have to plan a lot. It's really more complex deck. This is, I think, the even... who knows? I wanted to say this is the more complicated version, but I'm not quite sure if that's the case, because the furniture guys also have a complication for themselves. So yeah, I am really looking forward to this. I will stream this the whole day. I will climb the whole day to Master 1 with Labrynth. That is for fucking sure. That is so 100% sure. I could not be even surer. So thanks for being here. We will see each other in the next one, and next Thursday when the new pack comes out, stream the whole day. I'm looking forward to this. Hopefully you are with me then. I love you, and until then, have a great day.